You're listening to the Brandon Triangle on the Left of Straight Radio Network, a safe space for LGBTQ guests, listeners, and allies to come in and share in the conversation as we bring you the latest in news, politics, entertainment, and stories from the community in the United States and around the world. And now, without further ado, the Brandon Triangle bringing you all points of view. Welcome everyone to the Brandon Triangle on Left of Straight Radio. My name is Brandon Carmody. I am your humble host and narrator. I would like to give a special thanks to Scott Fullerton of Left of Straight Radio for including my show in Left of Straight's third season, and I'm very excited to be here and working to be a unique and valuable part of this LGBT radio lineup. There's some very valuable programming available on Left of Straight Radio. If you haven't checked it out, subscribe, Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, get the apps for iPhone and Android. I highly encourage you to do so. Now, on today's episode of the Brandon Triangle, we have special guest C.L. Frederick. C.L. Frederick is an internationally published columnist reporting on social issues affecting the LGBT community, whose article has been published in many national and international publications. We are going to have some very insightful and vital discussions on critical issues happening in the community with CL today. We also have entertainment correspondent Delina Roberts from lesflix.com joining us for our entertainment segment, talking about critical glass ceilings that are about to hit the television airwaves, like the openly gay characters on Star Trek Discovery. Will and Grace returned for its unprecedented 9th season after an 11-year hiatus on Thursday night, so we're going to have some great discussion with Delina Roberts. But I just wanted to highlight that there are some very important stories in the news right now. Puerto Rico, of course, decimated by Hurricane Maria. Humanitarian crisis there is unprecedented, and there's tremendous controversy brewing about the administration's lack of response or engagement on the issue. We just want to send all of our best wishes, prayers, and hopes to Puerto Rico right now. They need our support. So, folks, that is vitally important. Other stories that I just want to highlight quickly. This is from Logo's New Now Next. The Tennessee School Board is considering a vote to remove LGBT language from their anti-bullying policy. A Knoxville district is considering removing sexual orientation and actual or perceived gender from its harassment policy. That is yet another step in the wrong direction, devastating to the school district in Tennessee. I want folks to really keep an eye on that. But a big story related to Chechnya is that there have been some arrests in Azerbaijan. Listen to this headline from BuzzFeed News. This man says his government jailed him and tortured him because he is gay. More than 60 people have been arrested this month in the former Soviet Republic in an unprecedented crackdown on LGBT rights in the country. This is out today, October the 1st, from BuzzFeed News. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our first guest, C.L. Frederick, for some important discussion on all of these topics. And without further ado, C.L. Frederick. So we're here with a very special guest today. We have C.L. Frederick. Let's do the official introduction. C.L. is an internationally published columnist reporting on social issues affecting the LGBT community. His article has been published by numerous national and international publications. A few of the outlets he's written for include the Phoenix Newsletter, DNA Magazine, Prism, Homoculture, Impulse Group, the Dallas Voice. As a writer, he's known for sharing his personal experiences dealing with being an HIV-positive gay man, for documenting his journey from addicting and recovery. He's also has featured acting roles. This is really exciting. Modern Family, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med. Geez, I'm really seeing a trend there. LA Hair and Empire. As a male model, he's been featured in campaigns for Joe's Jeans, Quarter, Andrew Christian.
I wish I could tell you about the shows that I'm shooting this week, but I'm kind of sworn to secrecy on them. I can't really talk about them, but they're pretty big.
Yeah. Have you ever done logo? Because I'll be honest with you, when I was doing some research, I found a clip that I thought was you, but it wasn't quite clear.
That is me.
That was me doing my due diligence of journalistic research, watching a video of you in a Speedo on a pool answering questions for logo. But I think it was, are you smarter than a model?
And that was one of the funnest, I guess, jobs I had in West Hollywood, shooting that. It was a blast. I thought it turned out so funny.
How were the people at Loco? How did they treat you, and how was the experience
Oh my
doing
gosh.
something for Loco?
They were incredible. It wasn't like a huge deal or anything like that, a little segment. But it was a great time. They treated me with such respect, and we all just had a good time shooting, and everything. The atmosphere was light and breezy, and it was a good time. But some of those questions that they asked me were kind of difficult.
I suspect a setup. I mean, I glanced at it. I'm like, this looks like a setup.
They asked me 5 questions. I think I got 1 right.
Now, I have been looking through some of your works. Did we leave off Huffington Post? Because I could have sworn that you have a whole page on Huffington Post. We left off HuffPost.
I do write for the Huffington Post, and I think those articles that I've written are the most proud, I guess, contributions of my life. I know I've worked really hard on the articles that I write, and Huffington Post has really given me the opportunity to choose my own topics, whatever I think is important, share my life, my stories, but also to shed light on social issues that might not be getting enough attention. For example, I wrote an article called Paragraph 175 Revisited, and it was about Chechnya. It was really touching for me to be able to write about that topic because I didn't think it was getting enough attention in gay social circles, but also on the news and in print. And it's this atrocity that is happening today. And it just boggles my mind that...
And it's unresolved. It's an ongoing, unresolved humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, and it's going to be for a very long time just because of Russia's hand in the matter. But it's pretty sad and scary to think that we live in a day and age where there's still genocide, that there are still concentration camps for gays, that gay individuals or LGBT individuals are still rounded up from their homes and beat, tortured, murdered. It's sickening to me. Chechnya and the actions that are being taken against LGBT in that country, and then you consider how friendly our president is with the leader of Russia, Putin. It's an awfully frightening prospect.
Let us note yet again that here 8 months into the Trump presidency, we have yet to once hear President Trump speak out strongly against Putin. It literally has not happened.
Well, look at it this way. Aleppo is no more. Russia had such a hand in that. Look at the crisis, the refugee crisis. There's so many things going on in the world that Russia has a hand in, and no one in this current administration is going to be willing to take a stand against the atrocities that are occurring. But also look at our own country. Transgender rights, they're non-existent in this country. President Trump took away so many of the hard-earned and deserving rights that were enacted by the Obama administration. So basically, our transgender community is back to square one with very few rights, very few protections, and strangely enough, the gay community has been silent on that issue, and that just, it boggles my mind and it angers me because we are one community, and what happens to one of us will happen to all of us. If we're not supporting our transgender community, there's something wrong with that.
And what about multiple lawsuits against the Trump administration over the transgender military ban? Now, keeping in mind that that's limited to the military ban specifically, but
well, hopefully our military finds a way to do the right thing, which it seems like they are trying. I know it's a slippery slope when it comes to President Trump, but we have to hold people accountable. We have to not let people forget that these are issues that are not resolved, and they need all of our support, all of our voices, all of us contributing to make sure that not one section of our community is vulnerable.
I want to ask you about Puerto Rico, CL. You're tweeting a lot and retweeting a lot of tweets about Puerto Rico. So here's a couple of factoids for the listeners. Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico officials are describing apocalyptic conditions. No cell phones, water, or power. Roads completely washed away and others blocked by debris, isolating residents without power and communications in much of the island. Millions of people, including city leaders and first responders, are cut off from the world since Maria
Dams
hit.
are failing.
And so talk to me about Puerto Rico. What does it mean to you? What does or what should it mean to America? And are we doing anywhere near enough to help?
Well, first things first, Puerto Rico is part of America. Those are Americans that live in Puerto Rico. So there should not be any discrepancy when it comes to aid or help. They are Americans. Why haven't we sent enough help? Why haven't we sent our Navy?
Military resources, right.
These people, the Puerto Ricans, are on their own. They have nothing. They have no food, water, medicine. Their homes are destroyed. There is no electricity, no phones. There are people around the United States that are trying to get in touch with family members in Puerto Rico. That is impossible. So why is our president doing nothing? Why is he tweeting about NFL? Why is he tweeting all this nonsense to North Korea when we have a humanitarian crisis on American soil that he has yet to show that he even cares about? He says that the first or second week in October, there will be a military presence or more aid being sent in. Those people cannot wait 1 or 2 more weeks, 1, 2, 3 more weeks for any kind of assistance. They need it now. Their lives depend on it now.
You would think we would have learned from Katrina, right? You would think that our U.S. federal government would have learned the lessons of Katrina, right?
Not just Katrina. You would think that we would have learned from Houston or Florida or any. I mean, we had, 3 major hurricanes in a row, and we're just letting Puerto Rico handle this tragedy, this natural disaster on their own without assistance. It just.
I just want to quote from the AP. Trump, I'm not coming to Trump's defense. God knows we're all on the same team here still. But here's what the AP says today, and they tell it like it is. Trump suddenly focuses on Puerto Rico after not mentioning the hurricane-devastated island for days. President Trump announces he will visit Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands next week. Next week, he says he will be on the ground there. But
it's not even about him.
He just started talking about it today. That's a big deal. I mean, it landed on his radar today.
He has no other option. He knows people are pissed off at him because of his inaction. He listens to Twitter. He follows Twitter, and when he knows people are outraged, then he usually speaks and makes it look like he's addressed something. Puerto Rico does not need him to set foot on that island. What they need is military assistance. They need humanitarian assistance. They need doctors. They need nurses. They need help. They don't need him to set foot on that island. This is not about him. This is about helping people that are dying.
Is there anything that Americans can do? I mean, aside from donating to the Red Cross and relief agencies, what can we do?
Those are good starts. And I don't have the name of the organization in front of me, but there are organizations to donate to. I mean, we have our former presidents who are banding together to get aid.
Barack Obama, right? Did you tweet that you missed him? I thought I saw you tweet Barack that you missed him today.
I mean, President Barack Obama, what an amazing, amazing man. It sickens me that we have former presidents that are banding together to help people, Americans in need, yet our current president can't find the time to stop tweeting insignificant things and do the right thing and help people, Americans in need. I think today he said something about it being difficult because Puerto Rico is an island in the middle of a big, big ocean. Yes, it's an island
Someone's
in the
trying to give
ocean.
him a
But
geography lesson in between press conferences. Someone's trying to give him a quick flashcard lesson on geography, aren't they?
who knows what's going on? It would not be that difficult to empathize.
Well, let's go all in for a moment. So, okay, I didn't pre-screen our guest folks, so we didn't ask CL if it was okay to talk Trump, but pretty much every guest we have come on right now will go down a certain rabbit trail, and then the moment the T sound comes out, there's 10 minutes of a Trump dump. So I'm just going to go all in here and ask your opinion or your analysis, CL. So North Korea, Trump literally dubbed Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man, may not be around much longer. I mean, he's making a threat that North Korea literally declared that Trump had declared war on them via Twitter, and it's sending shockwaves and alarm all across the board to the point where now the Washington Post and New York Times released today that North Korea has reached out to Republicans. That's just a real shock to me. North Korea contacted American Republicans, said, help us with this Trump situation. We don't understand him. So what a twist. When you've got strange alliances going on, you've got North Korea talking to Republicans. So here's my question for you. How much does it alarm you that our POTUS, who is known for being a bully on Twitter, happens to have the nuclear football codes, would be engaging in this type of dangerous rhetoric that has potential to start a war that our own generals and our Pentagon have informed us we have no good options for? How realistic is the danger for him continuing to escalate the rhetoric, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, that's
war is terrible. Live people will die.
It's a difficult question to respond to because we don't really know the severity or the possibilities. To me, it's frightening because if anyone's threatening nuclear war and they have the capabilities, but also they have been actively shooting off missiles and also doing atomic and hydrogen bomb tests, there's a very, very, very desperate situation on the horizon there. The severity of that cannot be underestimated. Having a president that believes and doesn't see a problem with it and isn't doing anything to actually help the situation, that's frightening. That just adds to how scary the situation is, palpable. So who knows where that's going to lead? But hopefully a better outcome will be coming.
Doesn't it seem like only 3 weeks ago, but yet in Trump time, it seems like months that we were talking Charlottesville, the rallies there.
There's been so many negatives under this president that I don't think anyone has time to even breathe or remember or heal. That should be alarming enough to people.
But here's the question for you. In the grand scheme of things for Americans, for LGBTs, we're living in a complete bizarro Superman version of America than we knew and prospered under President Obama. How do we survive? How do LGBTQs survive?
We're not going to survive if we don't support transgender rights. If we can't start sticking up, which is long overdue for our transgender community, then we won't survive. If we could maybe find a way to, I don't know, somehow get over ourselves and see each other in the community, educated on what's happening to our community as a whole, then we won't survive. Our rights will be taken away more and more. If we look at health care, we look at how that could impact HIV access and care for positive individuals, then we would understand that that's going to affect us all. There's just so many issues that we're not paying attention to as a community, and that frustrates me and upsets me because I don't feel like anyone in the community, well, I shouldn't say that, I'm generalizing. I feel the community as a whole really needs to be a little bit more cohesive, and we need to be helping each other a lot more.
We have some sad breaking news that is literally coming across the wire right now. GL and to our listeners, we are sad to report that the 20th trans murder has just been announced. It's breaking on the wires right now. Here's the headline. It says, Allie is the 20th trans person murdered in the U.S. this year. The murder happened in Missouri, and 4 have been charged. So,
oh my.
so
What part of Missouri?
resting,
I'm from Kansas City.
I will, we're just getting the basic details now, so but rest in peace, Allie. And that right there just underscores what a pandemic the trans murder rate is. I mean, we're in September and 20 murders. This is unprecedented.
There's not another community that suffers as much as the trans community. And if we as a community, an LGBT community, can't even support what they're going through and offer more support and fight for them, then, I mean, I'm ashamed of us. I'm ashamed of the community. I'm ashamed to be a gay man. We can watch RuPaul's Drag Race. We can go see drag shows. We can't support our transgender community better. There's something wrong with that, and it's shameful.
Indeed. A lot of advocacy work. We've been asking other guests, but in the Obama administration, there was a dialogue going between all of the orgs, Human Rights Campaign, and all of those orgs between the White House and the organization.
We don't even have a page.
We don't feel like anyone in the White House. We don't have anyone in the White House that's communicating. So we're shut out. We're shut out.
All minorities are in this country now under this administration, and that another thing that should bring our community together, but also all minority communities together. We're all kind of in the same boat. We're not represented. We're not informed. We're not cared about. Frightening.
I'm literally gathering my thoughts. In my mind, I thought, no, there's a way to save America, to save the community. But then I was like, wait, where am I getting that idea from? I am going to go strong, CL, on the banding together, propping each other up, and being supportive within our communities. And I look to those works. I really look to Human Rights Campaign and all of the others for guidance and critical communication. And if they have an initiative or something that we need to rally behind, I'm there. I will do it personally because they've been really great on messaging. This is going to be a really, really, really steep pivot from the heavies that we've been talking about, but you have an article in DNA. You did a photo shoot for it, and I'm dying to ask you about it. So what can you tell our listeners about the article that you just had come out? It was literally in DNA on the 17th September, titled Rex Cameron on navigating his way through life in the adult industry. And now this is a heavy in a way. You're getting very personal in this article, I noticed.
Well, that one was for Instinct magazine, and then DNA just did a little for the next few weeks. DNA's doing kind of a Becoming Rex Cameron feature. So yeah, I'm really proud of those actually. So you want to know about that article?
Yeah, I've got it here, but I don't dare tell your story for you. You are really opening up your diary to a mass LGBT audience. I must say, you're very brave.
Thanks. I definitely have opened myself up to a lot. I feel like there should be those stories out there for people to relate to. And I was always so sick, especially when I was diagnosed being HIV positive. I desperately was searching for stories to relate to and to guide me in my time of need. And there were very few out there. And the ones I did find, they were like these sob stories, feel bad for me, I'm a victim kind of stories. And those frustrated me beyond belief because they weren't real. They weren't reality. They weren't helpful. So I just decided, you know what? I'm going to start giving my stories, and I don't care how I look, because I share my good, my bad, and my really, really ugly with the world, and that doesn't get you a lot of sympathy, which I'm proud of because. Who wants sympathy? If
I can ask you about this, you were talking about finding out that your insurance, I believe through your work, that didn't cover HIV medication. Literally, I'm quoting you here, no help from my employer and not even the slightest amount of compassion from my insurance company. I was bit out of luck and never felt more alone. And so you were fighting with your insurance company. It said that it basically painted a target on your back. right?
Well, I've moved out of state for this job, and, to find out that your medication wasn't covered, that's pretty heavy. And then for not only your work, but for the insurance company to, just not give a damn about you. And
what kind of
really,
ballpark are we talking about on these
because
medications? How much are they? What kind of dollar signs are we talking about? What scale of cost do these medications go for?
Oh my God, my medication. That medication was like $2,900 some odd dollars a month.
Wow.
So it was an insane amount. And who knew that still could happen? I had no idea that was still. I had no idea. I had never run into that problem anywhere else I've lived, and it was definitely a very trying time. And you are made out to be alone. When you have no other options. Like, I was able to get a month of medication, for an emergency case or whatever. And that's all I could get. And it was one of the most terrible experiences of my life.
I read the piece that you wrote, which I'm sure was in Huffington Post, about Ryan White and the onset of the AIDS epidemic in America. And then in this piece, you're talking about how outing yourself in it as a HIV positive and gay man basically drew the ire of conservative bosses and colleagues. So as if there wasn't already the target from the insurance battle. Once that article came out, it was game on, wasn't it?
It was a miserable 8 months at that job. Miserable.
8 months. Wow.
And, not only having to deal with the insurance and not getting my medication and fighting the insurance in my, my work every day, but also the ear of my colleagues. I think that was even harder to deal with because people can bring so much hate when people are not maybe used to working with someone that's gay or working with someone that's gay and HIV positive and so open like I am. Well, that tends to not be an easy road when you're working in a very conservative area. The hate I experienced was something I don't want anyone else, gay, HIV positive, minority, whoever, to experience. And it's a big part of the reason that I'm so open. I know I've been there. I've been through maybe every bad situation possible. So if I can share my experiences, then maybe someone who's about to go through that or is going through that or could go through that, if they read my stories, maybe it'll help them go through something that I go through, the pain and the hurt and the bad that I've gone through. Maybe they don't have to. And that's my hope. If even just one person is prevented from going through the hell that I've been through, then it's okay.
This here too. You're sharing it on the page. You're sharing it, in these magazines and Instinct and DNA and Outpost. You are really putting yourself out there to these audiences. Now you do talk in here about having an unknown or unforeseen second chapter. So you had a career change. Is that? I know. I'm really diving here. Was that a surprise left turn?
It really was, yeah. But I left that job. I resigned, and I was kind of just floored, and I was so depressed and so upset that it was eating away at me. But then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to let this happen to anyone else, or I'm not going to let what happens to me go silent, So I started thinking, well, what's the reality here? How could I have been helped, preventing me from getting HIV? What would have prevented me from all of these other things that have happened? So I kind of decided that, gay porn is way more powerful and influential than anyone really gives it credit for, which is weird to me because everyone loves their favorite porn star or I've been, out and people have run into their favorite porn star at an event or whatever, and people flip out they're the most famous person in the world to that person. And I just decided, you know what, if we're going to get real here, where do most gay boys learn about gay sex? They learn it from gay porn.
It's from the screen, right.
So I was like, to hell with everything else. I'm going to do some gay porn, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about, HIV. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about everything, and it's going to be okay. So I did, and I became Rex Cameron, and he kind of did well for himself, that little bottom. In 2 years' time, my porn character Rex kind of became one of the top porn stars, and he got to talk about all sorts of gay LGBT social issues, and I was really proud of him. He works with every top porn star top out there. I'm pretty proud of that. And he was just
it gets you out of the office. I mean that is definitely that's a change of scenery. I'll be honest. I'm scrolling through the article, reading through some of the headlines and names: Ryan Rose, Trenton Ducati, Billy Sint. Like, wow.
Oh, don't forget Sebastian Cross. He's my favorite. We had a good time filming. But let me tell you, doing porn, being a gay porn star is tough work. It is not it's not this cakewalk that people make it out to be. It's heavy. It's very heavy emotionally, and yeah, it's not hard. It's not easy. And then being famous, but not being respectable famous, was always something that messed with my mind, because I would get hundreds of messages a day. Hundreds. And that's a lot of interest from a lot of people in you. And it's a lot of responsibility as well. So
I am finding
I think it's a very thankless job, but I think it's very important.
I'm finding some extreme uniqueness in your stories, Yale, because I went to go compare this. Like, okay, there's got to be someone else that, also does advocacy work, talks openly about HIV, LGBT issues and all the stuff, that also works.
Well, there's Caden Gray, and I'm really proud of him. He was one of my scene partners. He's an amazing porn star. I think British. But Caden Gray, he's openly HIV positive and a porn star, and he's such a great advocate, like a sexual health advocate. Yes, there's not many. But
you're blazing a new trail here. That's the way that I'm seeing it. That's my call right now, is that you're blazing uncharted waters with this. I think this is remarkable and unique.
Well,
so unique.
You. Well,
does it impact you at the end of the day? Fame and money and everything aside, everything takes a toll, right? It all hits home somewhere. How are you doing these days?
Well, I think I'm really good. I just am not that person that lets anyone kind of pigeonhole me or treat me differently. So, I don't run into any problems with having done porn or the way I'm treated. I think maybe because I just don't allow it. I don't allow people to treat me that way or take my humanity for granted. So
people react in a way that you've connected with them and touched them. You have the incredible potential with what you're trying to do to reach out to people and help spread this awareness.
That's been crazy. I get people from all around the world that reach out to me, or they knew me as Rex and then maybe read one of my articles as the real me, and they either thank me or they're going through the same thing, or they read something that really touched them. And that's the best part of being so open, getting those messages. But also, on the flip side, you get all of these hate messages from conservative people, especially Trump supporters. Just a few weeks ago, I was included. It was me, Madonna, and Hillary Clinton. We must have, I don't know how the three of us got grouped together, but we pissed some people off, apparently, and I guess they were Trump supporters, and they were coming after me and Madonna and Hillary Clinton and telling us to move out of the country, and actually some were pretty mean, talking about dying of HIV, and I should die of HIV, and I'm going to die a slow, painful death, and them
Terrible.
talking about Hillary Clinton and Madonna and how the three of us should all leave the country together. And I mean, you can get some pretty hateful messages from very conservative people. That's fine. I can deal with it. But sometimes they're awfully frightening because you don't know. You have no idea, especially after Orlando. You don't know what people are capable of anymore, or if they're fixated on you that much.
We had one of our Twitter followers arrested by Secret Service because she was tweeting a threat of the Women's March. And keep in mind, it was like a week before the Women's March. And she was tweeting a threat that people should use like semi-autos and literally take out women in mass. And she specifically mentioned Rep. Elijah Cummings. And so right there, I was like, no, active member of Congress. We're talking to Secret Service. Next thing we know, we hear back like, she was arrested and detained by Secret Service. It's like, well, do I feel bad about that? Or would we rather...
No, you don't feel bad about it.
Be able to sleep at night knowing that was a necessary action because she crossed a line with her threats.
Yeah, but, there are lines crossed every day on social media. I mean, I have had crazy death threats, and it seems like nothing's been done about those.
There were thunderclap campaigns. We know folks that have worked with Twitter, but I think that the bad guys, quote unquote, make new accounts and make new accounts. I think that the technology, the entity that puts us all together there isn't quite up to speed with the reality of what the users are doing behaviorally.
I definitely feel that there needs to be more protections in place on social media. Not to say that I really think someone's going to kill me or death threats could be real or whatever. And I know most of the time they're going to be just people thinking that they can intimidate or whatever. But it's still scary nonetheless when you see your name associated with a death threat or something against you.
Fear can be powerful. Fear can definitely be powerful, and for some it's triggering.
Yeah. Well, the day and age that we live in, after Orlando, after Charlottesville, you just never know what people are capable of. And it's weird that anyone would even reach out and want to intimidate one like me in that way. And I know it happens to a lot of advocates and a lot of people who, might not be that conservative and maybe their message isn't conservative. It's just frightening. It's weird and frightening. But
one final topic I want to ask you about here, CL, and this is actually going back to your piece. So back on January 6th in the Huffington Post, you published a piece entitled Era of the Death Sentence, Our AIDS Legacy, Remembering Ryan White and the Millions of Gay Men who died during the darkest days of our AIDS crisis. So here's what I noted. You wrote this regarding Ryan White. Such hostility aimed at a boy who did nothing to deserve the social prejudice added to his fight to live. I could identify with Ryan, and I continued to follow every bit of information concerning his journey as a youth with AIDS. This was not an interest that I could share with my family or friends, but my soul was rooting for him. So here's the question for you, CL. Will you share with me and with our listeners a little bit about how those stories from the past impacted you, including Ryan White?
Well, look at this generation of gay boys. They have no idea who Ryan White is. They have no idea who Keith Haring is. They have no idea the realities of what gay men at the onset of the AIDS epidemic in America went through. They have no idea that these men were dying painful, slow deaths in which society turned their back, demonized, villainized, hated these men who were dying. Their families, the same thing to them. The medications that the men were on were killing them. I mean, these were intense medications. These gay boys of today don't have any idea about this history, about the struggles of the men who came before them. It's shocking to me, and it's sad to me that our own history is forgotten. So I wanted to write about Ryan White, who has been a hero of mine since I was a kid, and reintroduce his story to a new generation. And to not let his legacy be forgotten, because his legacy is a very powerful one. The same thing goes with Matthew Shepard, even though that doesn't deal with HIV. It deals with a young gay man killed for being gay.
Yes.
And that's another story that should not ever be forgotten, especially by this generation of gay boys growing up in a time where every possibility that I thought would never be offered to me in my lifetime, gay marriage, being able to have a family, being able to be more accepted, more visible, less stigmas. I never thought that was a possibility for me. It's natural for them. So there is no reason on this earth that they should not be aware of those who came before them to get them to the place that they are today.
Do you feel that schools, whether it be gay straight alliances or other programs, introduces, any portion of LGBTQ or AIDS history, current tense, or does our community have to educate outside of the schoolroom?
Well, of course our community has to do its part to educate because, those things aren't naturally taught, in the everyday lives of these kids growing up today. They should be. Hopefully one day they will be in some way, but they're not. So it's our job to not let these kids forget or to educate these kids on where we come from and to have pride in who they are, not just look at the gay lifestyle as a big party or social thing. These boys come from men who literally gave their lives to get to where we are today. And that should be respected and not forgotten ever.
Thank you very much, CL, for joining me today on the Brandon Triangle. I appreciate your openness, your determination, and just how much you care and have a level of compassion for the community, transgender, for all Americans. Any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners before we depart?
No, but it was really nice to talk to you, Brandon. Thank you so much for having me.
Frederick, thank you very much for being our guest. And again, for listeners, just so you understand the timeline of events, we are pre-taping on Wednesday the 26th, but this will air on Sunday. So perhaps a few events in the news will shift by the time this comes to the air, as we live in a 24-hour news cycle. But CL, we will talk to you again very soon. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the Brandon Triangle. We're here with our entertainment correspondent, Delina Roberts from lesflix.com. Once again, Delina, three episodes in a row. We really owe you. Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, thank you so much, Brandon.
So a bit of nostalgia as far as television. I hear that Will and Grace is back on TV. A lot of things from our past entertainment world are coming back, but the NBC show returned after 11 years. The Atlantic quoted, I'm quoting here, NBC show returns after 11 years and found its old chemistry and a new spectral cast member. Of course, they're referring to Donald Trump. So we've got the reunion of Will, Grace, Jack, Karen, and it offers your typical slapstick comedy, but some political commentary. So why don't we just start there? Have you seen the new Will and Grace? I will tell you right now, I have not yet seen it.
I did. I watched it. The first episode came out on Thursday, and I would agree with what The Atlantic said. I thought that they picked up very well on their old chemistry. It felt a little bit like watching it as if you were reconnecting with old friends that you hadn't seen in a long time. Deborah Messing, Eric McCormack, Sean Hayes, and Megan McMully all slipped back into their respective roles just like they were, putting on a comfortable slipper.
Incredible. So I've seen the trailer where Karen is rocking out and Grace is like, "What are you listening to?" And Karen says Fox News. That stuff looks pretty funny. If they're recapturing the old magic and the old charm, then I think that this would be a great thing both for that cast, for NBC, but just a win-win for the LGBT community that loves them. Are you excited? Do you think that they're going in the right direction? It's already renewed for a second season.
Yeah, no, I thought they did a great job. They felt like they picked up right where they left off. They did have to do a little bit of maneuvering to reboot the show, which was in the 2006 finale. They had a 20-year looking into the future episode, and in that episode, Will and Grace were were older, and they both had kids, and the kids were getting married. But that didn't really work out for continuing the show now. So they've kind of written that whole thing off as a drunken dream of Karen's.
So it sounds like life has changed with the Manhattan foursome in the past decade. What would you say from there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the characters we know and love. Will is still the uptight but charming gay lawyer. He's now single. He lives in the same fabulous apartment, although it's been somewhat updated. He's still tossing out his sarcastic quips. And Grace is still the same kind of neurotic, occasionally ethically challenged woman that we love. She's temporarily taken up residence in her old room in Will's apartment while her divorce is going through. And Jack, the adorable narcissist that we all know and love, is still just a hallway away. And Karen, who's everyone's favorite martini-sipping lush with an obscenely rich husband, still works as Grace's assistant. Although that dynamic never made a lot of sense to me because obviously she doesn't need the money, but it does create some great comic setups. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of political joking going around in the show as well.
Wow. So Deadline reports that on Thursday evening, the ninth season of Will and Grace premiered on NBC after more than a decade-long hiatus. 11 years later, opens on a scene that finds the initial quartet engaged in, and ironically, Will and Gracie in activity. They're gathered around Will's couch, playing a version of charades. This being the now digital age, the game is being played with the help of Heads Up on an iPhone, and 11 years have passed, but so little has really changed. Out in the apartment, it basically, they go through weird responses like rich hostage, Melania. So they talk Trump. That's what I really want to know. I think that's what the audience really wants. They're going to talk Trump, and they're going to talk hilariously, honestly. I mean, did you hear Trump talk, or are they kind of going out a little more snide, a little more subtle?
No, nothing about it was subtle. They definitely worked in a lot of Trump barbs. And the first episode, I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but there was a lot of emphasis on Trump and the Trump administration in the first episode. I don't know if the intention is to continue that throughout the season. I do know that Deborah Messing is quite vocal herself on Twitter about her thoughts of the administration. So I imagine it's probably going to be woven through the show to some extent throughout the season.
All right. So, folks, if you want to check out the revival, Season 9 of Will and Grace, that's Thursday night on NBC's new lineup, and we wish them the best. I am actually going to catch up on it so that by next week I will be up to speed, I promise.
Great.
In other news, this is a sad one. The Sex and the City 3 movie, oh my gosh, can we even tell the listeners this? It's canceled, folks. That's I know there's a lot of folks that are going to be, if you haven't heard already, we're reporting it here. The Sex and the City 3 movie is not happening. And to be fair, because I love Kim Cattrall, you got to understand, Kim Cattrall played a Vulcan in Star Trek 6. She was Samantha on Sex and the City. She is deserving of respect. The reports coming out, Delina, basically said that it's all Kim Cattrall's fault, that she made contract demands that if she did Sex and the City 3, that the studio needed to produce her other films. So she wanted Warner Brothers to produce other films in order to do this film. And the rumor is that Warner Brothers like, yeah, no, the whole thing's canceled. What's your initial reaction? That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that was definitely what was reported earlier this week. I think it's interesting since then, Kim Cattrall has kind of fired back on Twitter. Thursday, she claimed that her only demand was that they not do a third movie at all. and that she had made that demand back in 2016. So I'm not sure what the real story is there, but it does seem like Kim Cattrall was the one that was not interested in pursuing the show for whatever reason. Unlike Carrie Bradshaw, the character, Jessica Parker, was rather tight-lipped about the film's demise, but she spoke with Extra on Thursday night, and this is what she told them.
So I know that the fans, this is going to be very upsetting, but I'm a filmmaker, you're a film critic. I mean, let's look at it from a film perspective. And folks, don't forget, this was also a TV series, okay? So the characters, their storylines, their relationships, their marriages, their sex, everything that they went through got explored through all of those seasons of Sex and the City. So, I mean, you're lucky that there even was a Sex and the City 2. I mean, it could have been one movie, like, okay, great send-off. So I guess my question for you, calling for your opinion, Delina, do you think that it really does anything for the girls, for the characters, to do a third film, especially based on the fact that some of the criticism of the second film was that it was kind of pushing it and people didn't like where the direction of the second movie went? Could it stand to either harm or hurt the characters and the legacy if they were to do a third film and it was bad? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Potentially, Kristen Davis also kind of spoke out a little bit about the demise of the third movie, and she had played Charlotte on the show, and she admitted that it was deeply frustrating that they weren't going to be doing the third movie because she really had hoped that the series could have a send-off that was on their own terms and really completed the story of the characters. So it sort of felt like, for her perspective, she would have liked to have that closure of doing the final film. I didn't see much commentary out there from Cynthia Nixon, who's the fourth Sex and the City star who played Miranda. But interestingly, rumors have been swirling that she is going to make a run for the governor of New York, which would be quite a new role for her. But she has yet to officially either confirm or deny those rumors. So whatever the reason, it's clear we're not going to be getting that third Sex and the City movie.
Oh, I'm crying a little inside. Let me give you a little bit of insight about that second film and even during the series. So Aiden was one of the Carrie Bradshaw boyfriends.
Right.
Personal indulgence, captain's privilege here. So I did a film with that actor, with John Corbett, who was Aiden, in 2004. So my then husband and I were working on a film with a bunch of them, including Sean Astin and Patty Duke, called Bigger Than the Sky. It was titled Caught in the Act when we were filming it. So long story short, we were really, really, really elevated extras. We were filming in this very small backyard in a Northwest Portland neighborhood in this camp-out scene that was just after a big moment with the acting troupe. And two acting troupes basically converge on each other, and somehow my ex-husband's character ends up jumping on John Corbett's back, who played Aiden in Sex and the City, and just kind of pummeling. I'm like, you brute! Ah! And I got to tell you, it was so much fun working with Aiden from Sex and the City and seeing my then partner jumping on his back, it was, oh my gosh. It's really cool when you get to work with these people that you've seen on television and film and get a real perspective, like, oh, they're that tall, or they're that short, or they're the same height. It really kind of humanizes them from what we see on the screen. But he was just the nicest guy and a great actor.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed John Corbett's work. I liked him way back when he was doing Northern Exposure. I don't know if you remember that show.
I do. Well, so speaking of another show that we all grew up with, depending on the age range of our listeners, you could be going way back to Star Trek from 1966 or Star Trek The Next Generation, which is my era from 87. But Star Trek is reinventing itself with Star Trek Discovery, which premiered on CBS All Access last week. And they're breaking a glass ceiling, Delina. There are going to be some openly LGBT characters. Anthony Rapp plays Lieutenant Stamets, who is an openly gay bridge officer. So let's just get your reaction. First of all, should they or shouldn't they? Is this a step forward, or are we nervous? How do you feel about them exploring LGBT characters on Star Trek?
No, I mean, I think it's great. It's definitely the first time that they've had, series regulars that are openly gay. I know they've sort of, in the past, explored, sort of gay romances, but not on the scale of what this is going to be, which is two, series regulars that are involved in a relationship. As you mentioned, Anthony Rapp is going to play Lieutenant Stamets, and Wilson Cruz has been cast as his love interest, Dr. Hugh Colber, who is the medical officer on Discovery. So I think it's going to be great. Honestly, the history of Star Trek, it's always been very diverse. It's always pushed diversity. Even if you go back to the original show, there was a lot of ethnic diversity on the original Star Trek series that was unusual for that time. With Hulu, who was an African American woman, and George Takei, who played the communications officer. So I think they're just continuing on that diversity track, and it's more than time to incorporate LGBT characters into that.
There is a historical context. One bit of Trek trivia. Yeah, I'm a lifer here, so I know a little bit about Trek. Martin Luther King Jr. had a conversation with Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, the communications officer. She, stage actress and a singer, so she was feeling a little bit limited and thought about leaving Star Trek. And Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream, famous historical icon in the civil rights era, had a conversation with her and said, well, you can't leave Star Trek, You have no idea now the significance of your work on Star Trek, of an African-American character being on the bridge. He's like, you just can't leave the show. And I think Martin Luther King Jr. essentially talked her into staying on the show. I mean, that's important.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that. But, yeah, I mean, the fact that there was, an African-American featured on the show at that time when, most shows were pretty white across the board. And for her to also obviously be a woman was quite a statement back in that day.
And, of course, George Takei having an Asian. And let's not forget the Russian, Chekhov. I mean, we were in the Cold War against Russia, so I think that they were basically trying to show America. Someone told me the other day, Star Trek was really about telling the story about helping everyday, let's not even say Americans, let's just call us humans, relate to each other by taking the problems of this world and of today, putting them in a space context so that it makes sense in telling that story. So a lot of the 1960s, Watts riots and politically and everything going on played itself out in Star Trek. So I think that for Discovery in 2017 to accurately portray an LGBT couple and have it be not a thing, that makes perfect sense. I don't think it's going to be Game of Thrones or Queer as Folk and really just be outlandishly over the top. I think it would just be an honorable mention.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what's always been really great about Star Trek is they did take, things that were not normal in the time when it first started, and by shifting, the setting of the entire thing into the future, it sort of made the statement, hey, we can get past all of our differences, and we're all really part of one humanity. And I think this is just doing the same thing.
So, folks, one last mention here on Star Trek Discovery. It's decision time. It's not on television. One episode was on television, but the rest is on something called CBS All Access. You can get it on your phones, your tablets, et cetera, but it is $5.99 per month. And I think a really commercial-free version is $9.99. So I'm going to ask Delina first, do you have it and do you pay for it?
I don't currently have CBS All Access. I did subscribe to it for a couple months when their show called The Good Fight was on, and it was much like Star Trek. It was only available through CBS All Access. and I really wanted to see it. It's the sequel to The Good Wife, and it featured a lesbian couple. And it was a great show, and I enjoyed watching it, but I didn't hold on to the subscription after the show was over. I canceled it.
No, totally noted. So here's my challenge to thyself, and we'll do a check-in next week, but I'm going to sign up for it today. I think it's a 5-day trial before you're charged. So I'm going to sign up for it today. Today is October the 1st, and I'm going to check out the first 2 or 3 episodes of Discovery. I honestly think that the third one comes out today, which is where Lieutenant Stamets is first introduced. And if I'm satisfied, I will pay the $5.99. I will keep watching because I don't want to be the one guy, especially on the radio, that every week I'm like, did you see Discovery? But, well, no, because I don't have the all. So we'll check in 1 week and see if I still have CBS All Access. But Delina, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, sounds good.
Thank you so much. This has been a really cool show. Again, this is the Brandon Triangle on the Left of Straight Radio Network. Delina Roberts from lesflix.com is here for your 3rd week, so thank you very much. Once again, where can the listeners find your work and your reviews?
Yeah, they could just go to lesflix.com, and I have a number of different articles, reviews, and interviews focused mostly on lesbian and bisexual entertainment news. And they can also follow me on Twitter at lesflix, and I post there on a daily basis.
Awesome. Well, it's been really great having you on the show, and you're great company, very funny, and you're good at what you do. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining us again.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon.
Live long and prosper.
And we're back live now on the Brandon Triangle. Once again, thank you so much to my incredible guest today, CL Frederick, author, columnist, performer. I really appreciated your insights, the portions of your personal life that you shared with us, and your unique and compassionate perspective on the LGBTQ, especially the trans community. CL, we really appreciate your contribution to today's show. And of course, as always, Delina Roberts from lesflix.com. Thank you for your reviews and your insight on everything going on with LGBTQ film, television. And as I mentioned at the top of the hour, our continued prayers and support to the people of Puerto Rico, to the community. Everything that is going on right now is historic, it is game-changing, and I feel that we will rally together, we will hold together if we continue to do what we've always done best, which is to come together in times of great challenges as a community as a whole. And yet again, we're going to thank Scott Fullerton, Left of Straight Radio. You can find us online at blogtalkradio.com/leftofstraight. Straight is STR8. Spreaker, also leftofstraightradio.com. Once again, I'm Brandon Carmody, the host of the Brandon Triangle. We're here every Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you to my guests and to Left of Straight Radio. We will see you next week, and have a good gay.